Today, we're heading to the eastern side of the United States, specifically the Blue Ridge Mountains. They are a mountain range that stretch from Georgia in the south to Maine in the north. And today's conversation is with a photographer that has recently published a book on the area. This is episode 155 of the Great Outdoors Photography Podcast for December 20, 2022. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm your host, Brent Bergherm, and it's so great to have you here to talk about more things about the great outdoors and, of course, our photography as we're out there. It's so wonderful to have you here for another episode, another conversation where we're going to be talking with Mike Poggioli about this book that he published, but really it's more about just the idea of getting out there and what he has done as he has discovered the beauty of this region, the Blue Mountains. He's a transplant from the city, and to get out there and translate his understanding of photography into the great outdoors is an interesting story, and I hope you enjoy it. That'll be coming up here in just a little bit. First, I want to wish you, well, a Merry Christmas for sure. Christmas is just upon us, just about here in a few days, and certainly if you're listening to this far in the future, Christmas is coming up in less than a year. So Merry Christmas, and always looking forward to Christmas season. And a few things also that have been going on here that I just want to kind of talk about. And that is with the Great Outdoors Photography School. That is the online learning platform that I operate on my website. You can find the link there in the show notes. So if you're in your app and you just wanted to tap on the link there, or of course you can go to the website and just take a look there at the link across the top, and you'll just look for Photo School. But what we're talking about there is in January 2023, we are going to have a price increase. And I just wanted to remind y'all that when you sign up, you have a little bit of a benefit that I'm calling inflation immunity. Inflation is all over the news these days, but when you sign up, the price is not going to increase on you. You sign up, you keep your account active. You have that for as long as your account is active. And I would love for you to take advantage of that. Right now, it's only $28 a month, and it's going to go up a couple of dollars here in the new year. But I also wanted to take the opportunity to let you hear from some of the members there at the Great Outdoors Photography School. I asked them recently what they could do, what you could, I guess, just learn from, what you could get from their perspective. And specifically, I just said, hey, help others understand what they're missing out on. Help others understand what's meaningful to you about being a member here at the Great Outdoors Photography School. And first up, we have Brian.
I think the biggest thing is the sense of community that's these live sessions provide. So we have the ability to run through the different kind of asynchronous training activities and things like that on our own, but to be able to get feedback that's critical and relevant, but also supportive, has been really important for me, through this process, which having taken other classes in the past, I just don't get. So that's why I think this is particularly unique about this one, and I like this group.
All right. Many thanks to Brian for those very kind words. And now we're going to go to the Southern Hemisphere, and we're going to hear what Brendan has to say.
The value I get out of this is the different sets of eyes and experience that everyone in the community brings to the thing. So when you put up your photos, you could be looking at them on your monitor for weeks on end, trying to work out what to do. All of a sudden you get 2 or 3 different ideas, which helps you not only improve, that one photo, but also, improve your technique going forward for things that you look at, when you go out to capture the next time around.
And thank you, Brendan, for your perspective on just getting the idea out there, just, again, what it is that keeps you coming back. Certainly, we've got the live sessions. We've got the online trainings that are there. You can go through them at your own pace. But let's go here now and listen to what Bruce has to say about the Great Outdoors Photography School.
Yeah, I can speak to the photography school in general, in addition to these online sessions, in that the website offers great educational opportunities, and the classes and other tips that you have put up there with the short videos, everything from calibrating your camera to cleaning the sensor to all kinds of issues relating to photography in general. And that's a valuable asset. The master printing class, I think, is worth the price of admission. And I had an opportunity to go on the workshops a couple of times. I've repeated that. I liked it so much. But it not only teaches you how to set up your prints for proper printing if you're doing it yourself, it also teaches you how to do it if you're sending it off to a lab. I think that information has been really invaluable for me. And I second the notion about the sense of community. It's fun to get together with the guys and talk about the photography and get ideas for your photos and what works and what doesn't. Really helpful.
And finally, we're going to hear from Sam. I really appreciate what he has to say here.
I think the biggest, for me, who's spent a few years doing a lot of self-study, taking some other classes from other people, that what you get here that you don't get there is you actually get the chance to, talk to the instructor and get your questions answered. A lot of times you might get most of the way there with something that you're doing on your own, but that final, 20% or whatever, something you didn't have quite clear on or whatever, didn't read it the right way, to get that question answered is hugely valuable to have that interaction. And then not only with the classes that you're doing with design, creativity, and printing, but also just other stuff that maybe I've come across over the years, and maybe had some stuff in my head that wasn't completely answered that you've answered in a live session. That's been very valuable to me.
So I'm so grateful to these members. They really are engaged. They really are invested in improving their photography. They're really motivated. And that motivation is definitely something that is contagious. And so I then went and asked the members just a little more to go a little more deeper with you, to help you understand, I guess, this whole idea of the investment, this whole idea of understanding this is something that the benefit really comes through when you are addressing these issues, when you're addressing your photography, when you are giving it attention over a period of time. And if that's something that you feel you've been needing that motivation, you feel you've been needing that contagious sense of, you just got to get out there and shoot more. You got to learn more. You want to refine your process. That's what this next question is about, where I asked them, help us understand, we've got the new year coming up, and help us understand your approach for why this is a continuing effort, why this is something that really just keeps working for you as well. So yes, it's a continuing effort, but how does it keep working for you as well? So let's listen to what Brendan had to say about that.
Yeah. In my way of thinking, you don't know what you don't know. So, the benefit I get and the benefit for the longer term with this is things like these sessions, our Zoom calls, because you don't know what someone's going to bring up, the question they're going to ask, or just a comment they make about a photo, which triggers you off going, I didn't understand that. It then becomes the basis of your learning and where you move with your photography for the next period. So, for me, that's why these sessions are so beneficial, whether you get on them live or whether you watch the replay at a later date.
So I really like what Brian has to say, and we're going to listen to him here now. And it is, again, about this idea about the investment, but let's listen a little further. It's about the value. It's about truly his experience and the others too. I think he's kind of giving you the idea of what I think the others are giving out of this too, but it's his experience and the value he's finding by being a member of the Great Outdoors Photography School.
But it is an investment, and somebody that's in a creative pursuit, you never stop learning. So if you get something cool for Christmas and you're like, oh, I want to use this camera, this isn't the right school. It's not about that. It's about, okay, well, do you want to know how it works? I mean, do you really want to know how to take control of it and really understand, things like color theory and all the things that support behind the scenes? this is the course for you, but you're going to be out for the long haul because you're going to have to put work in.
All right. A big, huge thank you to everyone who was willing to participate in just sharing these thoughts about the value they're getting out of this service that we have offered there at the website. It's just my name, brentbergherm.com, but the school, I'm calling it the Great Outdoors Photography School. And if you like to shoot photos in the great outdoors, I invite you to consider becoming a member. It's only $28 a month, and you're going to get some signature courses. You're going to get some quick wins, what I call quick wins. You'll get their live replays. So when you sign up, there's 25 group sessions that we've already done that you can go through. And I also have them indexed so you can filter through. You can look through really quickly and say, okay, that is a topic that interests me. So you go and you just listen to that little snippet in that group conversation that we had regarding that topic, that particular topic. And you can then quickly go through and grab the pieces that are important to you. So go ahead and take a look before, of course, sign up before the new year, and you will be able to save a few dollars going forward because the price is increasing just a few dollars. And I just want to be able to offer that to you with this continuing price that we have right now. Now, certainly too, those live sessions, we do 4 live sessions per quarter. And so that's 1 a month plus an additional bonus, I guess you can call it. And when we meet together, we just come together and we have people from all over the world, which is amazing. I love it. We just had someone sign up from Great Britain. And so I'm just really excited to have this great perspective coming in and being able to just understand and learn more about our photography, learn more about ourselves, and get out there and make more meaningful images. All right, it is now time to head on over to this discussion that I had with Mike, and it's just an amazing conversation. So let's just get right to it. Today I'm talking with Mike Poggioli. Mike, welcome to the show.
Hey, Brent, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's wonderful to have you here. And we've got, I think, a great conversation coming up. We're going to be talking about the Blue Ridge Mountains, and we're looking at specifically this region in the eastern part of the U.S. And we're going to get into that for sure with you. But I want to just start a little bit more. Just tell us a little bit about you and your photography, wherever you would like to start.
Yeah, great. So I started taking pictures in around like 2015 or so. At the time, I was an elementary school teacher in Chicago, and just started. It was kind of a creative outlet, and just out of almost necessity, needed something. Just teaching was really pretty draining at the time. So took the L to and from work, and I loved it. I loved the commute. It was like a little architecture tour that I could take, every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll just step out of the train. And
just so people who may not be familiar with the L, you're talking about, it's like a subway, but it's elevated. And so you're probably, what would you say, about 2 or 3 stories up above the street level on average normally?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And so when you're talking about an architecture, how did you call it? An architecture preview or?
Tour.
Maybe? Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I mean, the L, I mean, it just spreads out from the city, but also you have this thing they call the loop. And I don't know if you're like me, I would have on occasion take the long route so I could see a little extra when it's time to go home or time to go into the city, leave a little early and see a little extra. Did you ever get to do that?
Oh yeah, all the time. I would take extra stops and just to get, a little bit more around the loop. Yeah.
Cool. So you're an elementary school teacher. You said this was in the neighborhood of 2015. You picked up your camera, and then what came next?
Yeah, so really enjoyed working with students, but really found I was more interested in helping students with or feeling like I wanted to help, but and didn't know how to, with my students with more of the kind of social and emotional needs that I was noticing. I was teaching in inner city Chicago schools, and so I decided to go to grad school for clinical psychology. And that was over in Cincinnati, Ohio, and took photography with me. So it was like a great way to just explore a whole new city, whole new town, and it was really, really, really great. Met a lot of people through photography in the area that I'm still really close friends with. And so I spent about 4 years in Cincinnati, and then ended up getting the last year of your clinical psych program. You have to do an internship year, similar to like the medical equivalent of like your
a residency or something like that.
Yeah, your residency, exactly.
Okay.
So I ended up, doing all the interviews, and I ended up getting matched at the Asheville VA hospital, working with veterans. Yeah. So it was a really great fit a lot of my interests. I was interested in health psychology. So lots of opportunities there. I'm originally from just outside New York City. So there's this theme of starting in, the Northeast, 30 minutes from, this huge city, New York City, and then moving to Chicago, and then, downsizing a little to Cincinnati, and then, moving finally below the Mason-Dixon line to Asheville. So here we are. And, continued to take pictures, but really, it was a challenge, I will say, to shift from, more urban or cityscape photography to then just kind of landscape and mountain photography. So, that was in 2019, and here we are, and crazy that I have a book's worth of Blue Ridge Mountain pictures at this point.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, so that move to Asheville, I just looked up the population of the city of Asheville. It says 94,000. So going from, like you mentioned, from New York City, which is just millions upon millions, city of Chicago, which is millions upon millions, Cincinnati, which I'm not going to look it up, but it's certainly larger than Asheville. And then you come into Asheville, which is still a proper city, but it is so much smaller.
Yes.
And then you've also got just this crazy, beautiful area that is the Blue Ridge Mountains right there. And so something transitioned for you, and you started becoming more of a landscapist and looking at things like that. Tell me some of those thoughts that were helping you transition to that phase in photography, that genre of photography, or some of the things, maybe there's some challenges that you had to overcome.
I think I went through a bit of a creative or like photographic kind of crisis when I moved.
Okay. That's not what I expected you to say.
Or dilemma, maybe to tone it down a little.
Sure.
But I didn't really know where to start. I didn't know how to really approach a brand new kind of subject. And I did kind of tell myself, whatever I end up doing, I want to kind of stay true to my eye, my lens, and just kind of find what really I find beautiful in the mountains in this area. So it actually took several months of just not taking any pictures, just hiking, exploring, just really not putting much pressure on myself, just to kind of take it all in and just observe, just see like, ooh, I like those layers, or ooh, I noticed the Blue Ridge Parkway has all these overlooks, and little by little. And it wasn't until like early fall, so I moved in end of June. It wasn't until early fall where I actually, for the first time, went out for a sunrise to an overlook and took some pictures. Even after that, it was another several months. It kind of went dormant in the winter, and I think I just gave myself permission to settle in and slowly kind of transition, accept, that here I am, and grieve the the loss of not being in a big city, having those urban scenes to shoot. But that was kind of the process.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I like what you say about just the idea of, you know, going out even without your camera. And that's certainly what I'll advise people to do, whether if they're in some kind of any kind of substantial transition like that, it probably does make sense. I say it absolutely does make sense, actually, to let the place absorb into you, and to even just see how you would respond to it. Because when you go out there with the camera and you're anticipating making images, and this is a completely different genre, I think you can still certainly make some reasonable images for sure. But your whole sense of style or your whole sense of purpose, you may not even know what that is yet. And when you have that figured out, and I'm going to focus more on a sense of purpose, when you have that figured out, you tend to just be a little more, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Intentional. Yeah. You tend to be a little more intentional. You tend to know what you want, and you're going to be a little more purposeful when you're shooting, which is certainly a good thing, I think. When you have that goal in mind, you know, there's a certain thing that you're working towards. Not that you're going to get it right away, but you know there's something that you're working towards. So, you know, when you went out and you shot that first sunrise, I don't know if you even remember the thoughts that were happening in your mind that day or what, but how many other sunrises had you experienced without your camera? And then here you are with your camera. And how does that work for you when you're so used to doing street photography? You're so used to doing the architectural type items, the man-made landscape, as it were. And here you are without hardly the whiff of humanity in your imagery.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a shift. Yeah. With something I loved about like city photography and street photography was you get all these interesting looking pedestrians, and you know, you get that harsh light and you can kind of play around with all the movement. But here these mountains aren't going anywhere. So
yeah.
So something I kind of picked up on is, you know, you get different, you know, weather conditions can always change up there. So that's something I kind of started to pick up on. Like I can go, you know, 3 days in a row and get completely different conditions. One day it's totally gray. The other day it's, you know, just popping off with, you know, a beautiful sunrise, clouds, and then you get a nice, you know, cloud inversion. And then the next day it's completely clear, nothing, no real drama going on. And, you know, you just kind of take what you can get. So,
yeah.
So that's something I kind of noticed and tuned into. And that's actually something that's been keeping me going. You know, there's almost this thrill of, you don't know what you're going to get when you drive up there. You can look at weather reports and all that, take your best guess, but you really never know till you get there. And sometimes it could just be this perfect, like, cloud formation and fog.
Yeah.
And it just feels, it feels great when it actually happens.
A lot of serendipity probably that's happening when you do experience that, because you're right. And you could be there. You could be there for your 10th time. And this is still going to be a different experience, largely because of the weather. But, you know, maybe it's seasonal, and certainly weather plays into the seasons as well. You know, you've been out there for whether it's your 10th time, your 12th time, but when you still have that mystery, you still have that unknown factor of what's happening. To me, that's what always, one of the things that always drives me about shooting in the great outdoors is just, you get to experience something new every single time. Now, certainly the street photographer in the city is probably going to say the same thing. You get to experience something new every single time, but I would submit it's a completely different genre of something new.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I would agree with that.
You know, where you're talking about certainly your interaction with people, your probably weather, sure, but the buildings, I don't know. To me, there's just a huge difference in how that, you know, seeps into my mind when I'm thinking about what do I want to do? What do I want to say when I make an image of what I'm looking at, and of what is before me. And tell me about inspiration, though. When you've been out there several times, you've ended up with a book published, actually, of this region of the Blue Ridge Mountains. And tell me about now that you've had a project like this and you put that together. You've been out there several times. What do you think is it going to be considered a primary source of inspiration for you as you're thinking about heading out again the next time?
Yeah. Honestly, I'd say it's kind of back to that thrill of, the serendipity of, there are so many scenes, even from the book, where I will go and think like, oh yeah, this worked out really well. I love the way the lighting worked and feel really good. Like, oh, I timed, it was the time of day that I really was looking for. But then there's always something in my mind that's like, well, this would look really cool. Same thing, but with the fall colors.
Yeah.
Or
come back again.
Yeah, exactly. Come back again. I saw, that it snowed. It gets good snow in the winter, so I'm going to come back. So it's like a little bit of, can I go back and get a different condition and still like play around with it? But I'd also say there are so many things. There are so many amazing, beautiful places here in North Carolina and just in the mountains. So many waterfalls, so many overlooks, so many hikes, so many peaks. I don't know if I'll ever get to all of them. So really there's a lot of inspiration there to just kind of tell myself, once it gets warm, I will, chip away. I'll make a kind of to-do list. So I'll do some of my regulars, and then I'll go to some new places and see and get some new compositions.
Nice. When you mentioned waterfalls, I got to thinking about a website I had found, and I can't find it right now, but if I can, I'll put it in the show notes for sure. But there was this map that just had every waterfall there in the Blue Ridge, well, in North Carolina, but of course there's a huge concentration there in the Blue Ridge Mountain areas. And I was just like, man, that's a lot of waterfalls. Yeah. And I, of course, just absolutely love shooting the water and in particular waterfalls. And whenever I see a map like that, I just start dreaming. Just let me go and let me just sit there and click that shutter and keep on moving. It's just, there's nothing better.
Yeah. It's almost like a challenge. Like, how many of these can I get to?
Yeah, how many can you get to? But then it starts to become a challenge too. Okay, what new can I say? I photographed 10 waterfalls today, or I photographed 50 waterfalls this year. What more can you say? What more can you bring to the story of waterfalls? And that's part of the challenge too, that I at least sometimes get really jazzed by, because that in and of itself becomes a challenge, and you end up going deeper. And you end up maybe with something that to maybe, how do I want to say this? You might feel like you're repeating yourself, but there's still, to you still notice there's something special. There's something unique about this location, this image, whatever it is you're saying about that location. And so it might be something that only satisfies your needs as a photographer, but there's still something there. I'm convinced anyway that you can always find something unique about a place, even though it's going to be so vastly similar to what you maybe have shot before. Yeah.
I like that wording. You said, how can I add to the story of waterfalls? I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So let's talk about your book, in general speaking. So it's Blue Ridge Dreaming is the title of the book. And just tell us a little bit about whatever you'd like to share about how this came to be, what it's made of, how long it took to make it happen, all that other good stuff that we might be interested in.
Yeah, so it has over 70 of some of my favorite images from just living in the Blue Ridge Mountains the past few years. Something that I think is really cool too is it's interspersed with poetry, both by kind of better known authors and writers, but also like local poets and writers, which I think really, really goes well with a lot of the imagery. And really it kind of started my first year in just the tail end of, or actually, let's see. Yeah, 2020, I had never experienced spring in the South.
All right.
And everything just started to get like really, really lush. And it's not something I had experienced before, that the lushness of spring. And so I challenged myself to go out and shoot at least one sunrise a week on the weekends.
Sweet.
And would just drive down the Blue Ridge Parkway. And something I love about the Blue Ridge Parkway is just there's so many overlooks. So you can just drive and stop and then make it so easy. And every overlook has a new vantage point, all these twists and turns, and you can just kind of look on out and see like tons and tons of layers. So I would just go to a new overlook, just started kind of gathering this collection of just these photos, and Blue Ridge Dreaming, the title, I think is really fitting because I honestly fell in love with the cloud inversions, just the fog formations and how they kind of weave through the layers. And so thought it was just a really fitting title, just kind of describes like kind of what I fell in love. One of the things I really fell in love with here. So yeah, I had already worked with Trope, the publisher, before, and contributed to some of they have a cool kind of city book series going on. So I contributed to Chicago and then the upcoming New York City books. And, after about a year and a half, 2 years living in the area, they approached me and they were like, Mike, what's going on? You're a city guy. What's up with these landscape photos? And I said, I'm just a challenge for myself, and I'm just embracing, this change of scenery. And they said, well, we love it. What do you think about putting a book together? So the process itself was just more of a process of, I'd already taken, hundreds, maybe thousands of pictures in the area, and it was just a selection process. And they gave me a ton of leeway, just to make my own creative decisions about what images I wanted and where to put them. So something I really appreciated. These images were from me, something capturing the beauty I found here that just so happened to be in a book.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that creative freedom certainly goes a long way for people like us, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That's something we we take value in. It's special to us. And when we're all, I don't know about you, but whenever I have an opportunity to work with someone or to otherwise contribute, what have you, certainly I'm thrilled. But when they ask for that, what are your thoughts? This is your work, let it sing, let it do what you want to do. There's just something extra special about projects like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I could not agree more.
So we're going to now talk about a few of your images that are in the book. Mm-hmm. And I'll do my best to describe the images. So the listeners, of course, because this is an audio podcast, and, an audio podcast talking about photography, a very, of course, visual medium is something that, I think it works as long as we can describe it well and really talk about the intent and the idea behind the images. But on this particular image that I'm looking at in your book, I don't see any captions. I don't see any other information. So I'm going to have you fill me in as best as possible on all the background information that came to the creation of this image. First off, I'm going to ask, is this sunrise or sunset?
This is a sunrise.
Okay. So we have the clouds are lit up by the sunrise. We have some fairly rugged rocks here in the foreground. They feel like there's a certain layering going on just in these foreground rocks. They're lower in the left-hand side of the frame as they go to the middle. Vertically speaking, you move to the right-hand side of the frame. They rise to the middle of the vertical space in the frame. And over in the left-hand side where the ground is, we have these diminishing hilltops, mountaintops, as we have the subtle fog. These aren't the really thick fog coming through. It's this subtle fog that gives us this subtle sense of this depth. And then certainly the sun actually is obscured by clouds. We don't have the absolute ball of the sun, but we do have this bright sense of the sun that's about to peek over the horizon, kind of an idea. So tell us about just the genesis of this image, the background, and what it basically how it all came together, and whatever else you'd like to tell us about this image.
Yeah, this was a late June sunrise at Hawksbill, atop of Hawksbill Mountain in Linville Gorge, otherwise known as the Grand Canyon of the Southeast. And it's like a ton of these rugged rocks that you can hike up to, and it almost looks like, when you look down the gorge, it looks like this old massive like prehistoric whale, just that has kind of grown trees and moss on it that they just used to be there. It's really cool. But I went with a friend. That's when sunrise is like at 6:15 in the morning or something like that. So and it was about just about a 2 hour with the drive and the hike up. So I think we woke up at like 3:30 and drove there. And again, it was a risk. You know, we kind of looked at the weather, tried to make our best guess, and so I was putting a lot on the table just with the hopes of a good sunrise. But this honestly was I'll never forget this sunrise. This was probably the most vivid, amazing sunrise I think I've seen in the area so far.
All right.
And then, so it was just kind of, I could not stop taking pictures, and then the sun was just peeking, like you said, peeking over the ridges. And then, just wanted to really highlight the rugged kind of rocks, just kind of shelving or falling kind of on top of one another in the foreground. Because that's what the whole top of Hawksbill Mountain is. And so, I tried to kind of just combine those elements, and then you see, like you said, a very light kind of fog in the background with a few of the lower kind of ridges down below, and this is just a sunrise I'll never forget.
So I'm curious, how much of a hike or a walk, or whatever you want to call it, is it from the parking lot, the trailhead, whatever it is, to this? Did you have much of a hike as well, or is this really close to wherever you can park right near this? Give us a little sense of that and the accessibility of that.
Yeah, I'd say, I forget the exact mileage. It's maybe a 30 to 40 minute hike, depending on how fast you're willing to book it. And somewhere around there, I'd say.
Okay. So not too bad, but certainly this is not something you're going to drive to, walk 10 feet, and here it is.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
All right.
Yeah, it's a pretty steep one. So by the time you're up there, it's definitely
you're out of breath.
Yeah.
Nice. I was just reviewing some images from when I went to, because I'm creating a gallery on my website. So I was just reviewing some images from when I went to Unalaska Island, which is the first major island, I should say, in the Aleutian chain. And the first hike we did, we went up this little thing just out of the center of town, quote unquote, called Mount Ballyhoo. and that was steep. And it wasn't a long hike. I mean, we're talking maybe a half a mile, but it was steep and it took forever to get up it. And I was definitely winded. I almost felt like I was at elevation, but you start at sea level basically. So,
wow.
But still it was steep and it was winter time because I was there in December. But my goodness, was it amazing. And just, yeah, it's when you put yourself through these hard physical trials, I'm convinced anyway, it really sinks that experience into you. Then when you look at your images again, there's just that special piece of the memory that still comes out. And for anyone listening, if you've not been out in a while or something like, whatever the case is, get out there and shoot some more, especially in wintertime, if you're here in the Northern Hemisphere, because it just, in 2 years, 3 years time, when you look at those images, there's just something about it that you recall those little details, and it just adds to the value of the image, I think anyway, of the image you made and the experience you had.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's look at another image. And in this image, we do have a little bridge, and we've got some fall colors. So we have some leaves falling into a creek. And here you have one of the poem items also juxtaposed in the same spread of this book in this area, for this image, I should say. So tell us about this image. We have certainly water falling over the rocks, but here again, some really rugged rocks are coming through. And it's almost like the water is channeling itself around these rocks. I would certainly presume in the springtime, it's probably a gusher.
Uh-huh.
But here you are in the fall time when it's just not flowing as much. And so it just changes the characteristic of the creek or the river. But then, yeah, we've got these beautiful orange and red hues coming through. Tell us about that.
Yeah, this is, I think I'm bad with pronunciation. The Tanawa Trail, maybe, the Tanawa Trail Bridge, and it's near Rough Ridge on the Blue Ridge Parkway. Actually, right by right past the Lynn Cove Viaduct, which is like when you see pictures of Asheville and the Blue Ridge Parkway, it's that like famous S curve shot that you usually see of the parkway. Okay. It's a little bit past there. And I love that. I love that whole area. Just sensing a theme here, a lot of rugged rocks. And, I loved this bridge. It was just before peak fall, like right around there, but enough leaves had fallen on the rocks, I think, to kind of have pleased my eye, at least at the time. None were placed.
Yeah.
Disclaimer, none were placed. And, I must have spent maybe a good hour just circling 360,
nice, around
this one bridge. So I got the opposite side, this side, climbing on all the rocks, and just trying to get every angle I could, and it was it's a little bit of a trek out there, maybe almost a 2-hour drive as well from where I'm at, and so I just want to make the most of it. And since then I always tell myself, I want to go back to that bridge and
absolutely
get it in the spring or get it with some snow, but this I don't know why. Something about the curve of the bottom of the bridge is, and just the stream kind of going through. Kind of magical.
It gives it some kind of that curve of the bridge that we see. We're only seeing in the neighborhood of half the bridge. The rest is obscured by foliage, and there's a certain elegance to that curve. And also the bridge itself, the straight lines, those are the only absolute straight lines at all in this image. And then of course that curve it's the only even curved, so we can tell this is a manufactured thing. Of course, that's what sets it apart from nature. But as you were talking about this and how you're just kind of running around, I'm just picturing myself, this is the type of location, the type of thing that just, definitely gets my interest piqued, because I could spend hours here, and the wife and kids will be like, Dad, honey, let's go, or whatever, if I were to take them. And a lot of people ask me a lot of times, when you go traveling, Brent, do you go with family? I was like, no. Not only can I not afford it, but if I were, it just changes the whole, and we have done, summer trips and whatnot, but it just changes the whole dynamic of shooting, because I have to concern myself with them, which I want to. It's not like they're a burden or nothing. It's just, they're my family. So I want to, not bore them with what excites me in this case. Because we can get lost in a place like this, lost in time. That's what I really mean. And I think what really is working well on this image too, not just the colors, but each of those rocks, they're a distinct line that launches you visually, takes you on this path. But it's also a rough path. It's because of the rocks. The texture of the rocks are really coming through. The texture of the leaves adhered to the rocks are really just everything. There's so much strength in those items, but it's not like it's overpowered either. So there's just something that keeps you interested and keeps you moving through. And then when you find that subtle curve, it's almost like the eye can rest. It's almost like negative space in an image, but there is no negative space here. But we do have that curve where the eye can be like, oh, finally something that is not so rough. And we appreciate it because it's not rough. So anyway, that's what I get out of this image anyway.
Yeah. I can definitely resonate. I was lost.
You were lost.
Definitely got lost
Nice.
in time here. It just time just kind of stopped.
Time just kind of stopped. I love it. All right. The next one here, these orangish flowers with the very ominous looking clouds overhead. Tell me about this one. And you have a quote by John Muir. So I'm going to go ahead and read that one. Going to the mountains is like going home, it says.
Yeah, this was a late mid-June shot up on Roan Mountain. One of my favorite places to go. It's right on the Tennessee, North Carolina border. An Appalachian Trail goes through it, and it's beautiful. First of all, in the spring, the rhododendrons just are covering this mountain, and there's also these orange fire azaleas, which kind of intersperse with, or kind of mix and match with, the pink rhododendrons. So it's really a sight to see. So this image, I focused just on a bush of fire azaleas, and coming back to weather, I've gotten fogged out on Roan way too many times, where I'll just go up and the whole thing is just engulfed in fog, and you can't see a thing. And it just hangs around. So you really don't know. But I kind of saw these ominous clouds in the distance, but the light was putting on a show. It was kind of still glowing on me and these azaleas. And you probably tell I really gravitate towards the complementary blues and oranges.
Yes, so I'm definitely picking that up.
Yeah. So this was like my bread and butter color palette right here. These darker blues in the background, and then these like glowing oranges in the foreground. So I love the rhododendrons. They're beautiful, but these fire azaleas just I had never seen them before. So before I moved here, so Roan has a special place in my heart as well.
Cool. Probably, these fire azaleas, you say you'd never seen them before, kind of like, for some reason, it just popped into my mind. California poppies. The first time I saw those, we do have those up here in Northeast Oregon. In fact, we have some on our property here. But I remember when I first saw those, I was like, wow, that is a color. Nice, bright, brilliant orange. And we have basically the same idea coming here, although the blossoms look to be substantially larger, potentially anyway, than California poppies. And then with this orange and this blue tonality that you have going on here, because that previous image of the waterfall and the rocks, I had a sense of that blue kind of coming through in the rocks too. Is this just some of your processing aesthetic that you tend to go for when you're processing your images?
Yeah. It started in Chicago because, it was like there'd be those street lights, which have this very orange glowing kind of hue. And then in those, especially in those like urban canyons, gets like dark and kind of bluish. And so I think that's where this color palette started.
All right. So this we could say is your form of the urban influence as you moved into the wildland, great outdoors type photography. Would that be maybe a fair assessment?
I think that's very fair. It's what finding those compositions that really played well to those complementary colors, I think became a part of my eye and what I looked for as a photographer. And so I definitely challenged myself to take that with me to the landscape.
Well, I really love that, because I think that just very much speaks to everyone that is a photographer that, how do I want to say this? That speaks to everyone who's out there shooting and is having a little bit of self-doubt, because they're probably or possibly thinking, what could I bring to this? What can I say here? And, I think there's a cliche. It's been said so often, at least in my circles, being that I'm a teacher and I have a new crop of students every year, or at least every 4 years, as we move them through. So it's always helpful to repeat these types of items. But I think even if for those of us who have been shooting for 20 plus years, it still is worth repeating. And that is all of our baggage, probably the negative way to put it, that is packed into our mind, we bring to the scene before us. Our entire life has led to this moment when we're out there shooting. And sometimes we don't want to think of it that way, but truly that is the case. And I think that's really interesting how you say you brought that from Chicago. You're shooting when you're in Chicago, and you started shooting in Chicago. So that's fair to just characterize it as your Chicago look, or possibly whatever along those lines. Mm-hmm. But to have that be something you brought into your nature photography, for some reason, I just really find that interesting. And it just gives a little more value to understanding the aesthetic of the work that you're creating. Just knowing that background and knowing how that thread is brought through to these images. And what would be extra interesting is to say, 10 years from now, what is it going to be? Will things shift? Will things whatever for you? That would be an interesting assessment to pay attention to as well. Yeah,
I'm curious. I'm curious as to what would happen.
Yeah. And this next image that we want to look at, we have a mill. And again, with the overall nature of the shadows areas, you have a little bit of a blue tint to them. The highlight areas, those are the fall colors. Mm-hmm. And then certainly we have the waterfalls, the subtle small waterfalls. Again, it's fall time. So the creek is really, lower flow than what it would normally be if you were there in the springtime. Tell us about this shot.
Yeah. This was taken, this is, I guess it's just the old grist mill, I think it's Babcock State Park in West Virginia. Very photogenic. I think like there are tons of photographers here all the time getting this shot. But this is when I lived in Roanoke, Virginia, for my fellowship training year, and so I had always wanted to go to this mill, but it was always just kind of too far. But Roanoke was just a day trip away, so drove there. I think it was maybe 3 or 4 hours. Yeah, somewhere around there. And I think I combined it with a trip to New River Gorge State Park, which is also beautiful. I think I'm calling it by the right name.
I'm looking these up as you go along to verify, so I'll let you know if you're wrong.
Okay, thanks. But yeah, so the goal was to get this shot. I think I was. You can kind of see the top. You could start to see the leaves. The trees are a little bit thinning out. So I was like just a few days past peak, which I kind of, again, there's another like thing in my mind. I've got to go back and get it. But this was right before sunset, so there's still a nice kind of. I didn't get. I made sure I didn't want harsh light on the mill, but
yeah,
just a nice kind of diffused kind of light right before the sunset. And yeah, by that time I actually took a half day off work, so it was less busy. There are still 2 photographers there, poached like right. We had to kind of be like basically on top of one another with our tripods, which is just the classic photographer story.
Yes.
But yeah, this again, I mean, I was so glad to have finally visited this place. I would recommend if anyone's in the area, West Virginia is beautiful. I think when you drive into the state, the sign that says "Welcome to West Virginia" says like "Wild and Wonderful" or something, and it's definitely
cool,
definitely true to form. So West Virginia would definitely recommend this grist mill. It was really beautiful, and I love, like, it's just a very nostalgic kind of shot.
Cool. Yes, I definitely get a sense of nostalgia coming from here. And as we go up in the frame, it just gets lighter and lighter, and it still has that sense of just that airiness, that sense of a little bit of atmosphere coming in. And it just, I think, helps to, it sets the stage, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, where we've got the theme of ruggedness coming through again, with the rocks, even with the texture coming through in the building, but then that's offset. We have the contrasting sense as we go up higher into the foliage, and it just takes on this softer ambiance, this softer sense. And so it's nice to have that contrast of forms and such there.
Yeah.
So the next one we're going to look at, I guess, fall color. I don't know if it's just me choosing fall colors because we're at the end of fall right now at the time of this recording, or maybe that's just a lot of when you shot there. As I'm going through the rest of the book, though, I think we've got a good number of fall color here, but it seems like you're on a trail itself. And so this is like a bend in the trail or something like that. And we've got this tree that is very prominent. Tell us about this image.
Yeah, so this is the trail to Craggy Dome Overlook by Craggy Gardens, also right off the Blue Ridge Parkway. Nice, easy hike, like 10 minutes. So that's kind of nice. But yeah, this tree is right on the edge of the trail, and the trail kind of loops around it. And I always, this is one of the first hikes I went on in the area, and I noticed this. It's like this tree and I just locked. If it had eyes, we locked eyes, and the roots just kind of twist, but then its branches almost look kind of twisted. And so I was like, I just want to try to take a picture of this tree in all seasons. So I do have, I don't have like a snowy one yet, but This was like smack dab in the middle of October. The colors were like perfectly peak. It was a foggy day. So again, didn't know what I was going to get, but it was just clear enough. And the interesting thing about Craggy is the fog will kind of, like, you could literally see it kind of coming over.
Nice.
And it's notorious for this. Like, something about that area, the fog just kind of runs over, like almost like a comb, like it just kind of combs through over. And so, it'll like fog up and then clear out like within seconds, and do that over and over again. So it was like very quiet. No one around, I guess, because the fog was just deterred people. It's pretty early morning, got a little bit of a glow. And then, the fog just kind of cleared, and I just like snapped the picture and just kind of knew, like, okay, that's the shot I've been waiting for. And,
nice.
Yeah, it was great, foggy. I love the foggy mornings, if you haven't picked up on that. And, it just kind of all made sense. So now the next shot is to get some snow on it, but
yeah,
that'll be a work in progress.
There's this tree is something that is it well illustrates the thing that just fascinates me about trees, because we have the exposed roots, and that is how the exposed roots, they all spread out. But of course, what their job is, they bring nutrients from the ground. They bring it to the centralized area that is the trunk, and then they spread it out to the branches. And of course, it goes back and forth, because you have the leaves doing their thing where they have the photosynthesis happening. They bring whatever nutrients, whatever things that they do into that centralized area. It's just this back and forth. And for some reason, that kind of thing, whenever I see exposed roots on a tree, there's just something about that. It just always, I find myself in awe, because it's not quite, but it's almost just a reflection of what's above ground. And to know that that's happening below ground too is just call me a nerd. I don't care. I just think it's really cool.
You and me both.
It's just something about that. And it adds something really intriguing to the interest of the subject, is what it boils down to. So anyway, let's go on to our next image that we're going to be talking about. And here we have some of those things you talked about with the layering and the fog. And so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 major ridges. The sun is just out of frame to the left-hand side, and it's brilliantly lighting up the fog that is kind of just swimming about these valleys that are created by these ridges. Tell us about this image, where it was shot and all that other good stuff.
This was actually the shot I was referring to. This is the first sunrise I went out with my
very cool.
My camera. I think I got lucky with the fog, and maybe that's why I kind of got hooked on this, on kind of chasing these types of scenes.
Well, I love at first sight. I would totally understand if this was your first shot in the region. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. This is Mills River Valley Overlook on the Blue Ridge Parkway. No hike needed. Just pull off and you have this view.
Wow.
I did have to zoom in a little bit. But I, again, was just taking pictures, had my zoom lens, and noticed this particular like overlapping, almost like a zipper effect of the layers, almost like interlocking.
Sure, yeah.
And then the sun, I couldn't believe it. The sun was coming up and just streaming through, like almost as if like there's this light, or even like a fire. I hate to say it, but below in the valleys, lighting up the fog. I'm
from the Northwest. I know what forest fires are all about. So no worries.
Yeah.
It's,
okay.
Yeah, there's certainly something to be reckoned with. Yeah, you don't want to joke about it, but they can provide for some really good scenery anyway. As far as just when the sun goes down or the sunrise, we can get some really brilliant effects happening because of that. Here, thankfully, we don't have a fire going on. It just kind of looks like it.
Yes. Yeah. And you can kind of see subtly like the angle of the sun coming in at certain points. And I think, yeah, it just kind of zoomed in as like almost this little dream world, right in this area. And you can also see like on the one side where the sun's coming in, it was like this almost like purple pinkish kind of hue. And on the other side, you see like the other parts of the ridges are still in the shadows, like not lit up yet, which I thought was just so cool. So a lot of things that I really, again, fell in love with about mountains here. And I think I got lucky. This is my first time out with my camera with the intention of shooting. So would definitely recommend this overlook. This is a great one for sunrise.
Boy, I'd love to get out there and spend a month or so just going around shooting all these different little areas. As I follow you, as you're talking, I hunt down these items on the map, and I'm looking at these different items, and I do see some items. Hey, I've been there. But then I'm finding out all these other places I haven't been. And it's just like, this is the problem when you just are there for a very brief period of time and you just don't get to really explore and see the place that you can see when you have the intent. Let's go, let's explore, let's pull off this place, that place, the other place. Because we looked at a place earlier with the creek with the bridge going over it, and you had said where it was, and it was right close to what was it, Grandfather Mountain or something like that.
Yep, right there.
And I was like, oh yeah, I've been to Grandfather Mountain plenty of times, but I never knew this other little place that you shot here existed. Mm-hmm. And certainly now, as a photographer anyway, I want to go to this little place. I'm sure I could find something great at Grandfather Mountain, don't get me wrong, but
yeah, of course,
I want these little vignettes that you just don't see without exploring and just opening your eyes to making yourself available to whatever is available. You only see the highlights on a map or whatever the family tells you, hey, you should go see this. You know, there's still that serendipity that we want to get into when we're just out there for ourselves hunting for these images. And this next one, to me, I get that sense of serendipity again, where it's backlit trees and they are in the fog and you've zoomed in and all we see are trees and fog.
Yes. Yeah. This was similar story. Sunrise, another overlook. This is Pounding Mill overlook. Another great one for sunrise. Probably one of the best in the greater Asheville area, I'd say for sunrises. And yeah, it's this, you see this little valley right in front of you. And there was just this nice kind of airy light layer of kind of fog just kind of streaming through. You can kind of see the wisps in some of the through some of the trees. And then the sunrise, the sunlight just kind of piercing through some of them, and it again just kind of created this like dream-like scene. I did zoom in a little bit, and yeah, it's just kind of I like that, going for that kind of immersive feel. So you look at it and you're just like in it. And dreamy and immersive. Let's I like those words. So yeah, this is another one that definitely lucked out for this one.
This is the kind of thing that murals are made of, basically. It's it definitely has that sense. Make it big and make it wide, as it were.
Yes.
All right. So on this one, this will be our last one that we're talking about. This is another, there's actually on this spread, there's actually two images. And I want to talk about the waterfall one just because, like I mentioned before, I'm a waterfall fiend. And we have the same idea of the fall foliage, the rocks, but a completely different sense as it relates to the design of the image as far as what the water is doing. This one, the water is much more vertical, so there's a lot more vertical energy, and it almost feels like it's coming from, because at the very top we have this very intense glowy type area that is effectively giving birth to this waterfall, it feels like.
Yeah, this is upper Catawba Falls. So Catawba Falls is this very majestic looking waterfall. Almost looks like a waterfall from like the Avatar, one of the Avatar movies. Very easy hike to get there, but it's closed actually. The whole trail is closed this year for repairs. This was before that, but I did not trespass. But this was a late fall evening, and scurried up from the Catawba Falls up to here. It's a short trail, but it is incredibly steep. It's like sometimes you're feeling like you're doing rock climbing, but the payoff is no one's there, and so few people are there, and it is just this beautiful waterfall. It's like it has this untouched kind of feel, just because it is so hard to access, and it not very well known, but just kind of did my thing. Like, again, a 360 kind of, I just spent a ton of time, and the sun was setting. So just kind of, there was a little bit of glow there that I kind of accentuated. And, it was just a really nice scene. And I don't think something that stuck out to me about this was how quiet it was, but also at the same time, like in my memories, the roar of the waterfall was really loud, but it also felt so quiet. And maybe I just kind of got lost in that too. And this really liked the vertical kind of energy here. You get the background of the main waterfall coming down, and then the foreground of the little stream, the little siphoning down into the river. And they kind of match. I really wanted to get them aligned.
And what interests me about, you say how quiet it was. I'm looking at the map, the way the crow flies, it's only like a half a mile from Highway 40, Interstate 40. And to have something like this that is so serene and so peaceful. So I would still call it accessible. You said it was a little more difficult to get to. I think you're talking about the nature of the trail itself. Still, it's accessible. We have an interstate that goes virtually right there. And it just blows my mind sometimes how that can be. The same kind of idea was very prominent in my mind when I was at Theodore Roosevelt National Park. The interstate, they have a rest area literally right there that is at the park, and you have direct access to the park, and it's completely free because it's a rest area. And to have all that access to such this wild and natural beauty, so close to such a major piece of infrastructure, it kind of blows my mind a little bit. And here, the same thing is happening with Highway 40 right there, so close. You just pull off and you've got this trailhead right there. Hopefully it'll be opened again next year when they get that trail fixed. So looks to be an awesome place to go to.
Yeah. This is one of the more accessible waterfalls if you want a nice little hike with the family when it's open, but not to Upper Falls. That I almost cracked my my lens.
Oh dear.
Falling. So I definitely would throw a word of caution there to get up there.
All right. Well, that will wrap it up for the photos that we're going to be looking at. I really appreciate the conversation, Mike. Tell us where you would like to send people if they want to take a look at more of your work. If you have a website or Instagram or anything else along those lines, where can people find out a little more about you?
The best place to start is just Instagram right now.
All right.
My handle is MP the Comeback Kid with 1 K because 2 Ks exceeded the character limit.
Oh dear. Okay.
Yeah. and there's a link in the bio there that kind of takes you to everything. Like the book, the prints, all that good stuff. So that'd be a great place to start. I'm most active there. If you want to send me a message, that's the best spot. Instagram.
So MP Comeback Kid.
MP,
help me.
The Comeback Kid.
Oh, the Comeback Kid. Excellent. There it is. And Comeback Kid only has the 1 K. It's not it BACKID is effectively how you would pull that in. Yeah. All right, good. Yeah. So I've got you. We will include that in the show notes. And people can tap that and take a look at more of your work there. And any last other items, anything else that you'd like us to make sure we know before we sign off on this conversation?
Not really. I really appreciate this conversation. I love just talking about composition and photos, and this was awesome.
Yeah, you bet. It's been fantastic having you here. Certainly photography is definitely my thing as far as if I'm always thinking about a shot or something. So, it just flows through my veins. So it's been, definitely really appreciate having you here. Where can we find your book? Is this something that's available on Amazon or where else, where do you want us to go to see more about your book specifically?
Yeah. So it's going to be available on Amazon, or you can go straight to Trope Publisher, the Trope Publishing website. So whatever you kind of prefer there.
Perfect. I'll include a link to the Trope page for your book, and people can take a look at it there. And you said it's going to be available on Amazon, so I imagine the book is brand new, and it's and it's going. If it's not fully distributed yet, it will be soon. Yeah, actually, I think as we speak, they are sending out pre-order copies. For folks who pre-ordered it, so it's coming soon. It'll be excellent. Coming soon. Very good. All right. Thanks again, Mike. I really do appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you, Brent. This was a blast. All right. It's time to think about closing out this episode. And I just wanted to leave you with a few more doses of inspiration and maybe a little bit of what the future holds for us. What we're looking at in probably the next episode, actually, I have been doing a lot of planning about actually what I'll be looking forward to in spring and summer. And it actually has a lot to do with things staying local of all things. It is almost weird, oddly weird for me to be planning to stay home. Oh my goodness. It hurts to say that. Oh my goodness. I so want to travel. I so want to get out. But as I'm looking at the landscape, and I mean that as a metaphor, the landscape of just life and what we need to do with our family and things like that. Right now, anyway, I'm going to say I've decided to stay home. Certainly those plans can always change, but I'm not going to spoil it too much. I still have a few things that I need to figure out and get understood as to how it is I'm going to approach it. But I've decided, hey, I was like, you know what? Let's go ahead and make this an episode. I think it'll be amazing to give you a little bit of an insight of what's coming forward and just how that's all going to I'm excited about it, and hopefully that will get you excited too. It does have, I'll give you a little bit. It does have something to do with looking at some more macro type images and that idea of the focus stacking. I did a little bit of that a little while ago, and I was just like, yeah, this is really cool stuff. I really want to take that to the next level. And oftentimes when I take something to the next level, I take it like to the next 3 levels. So hopefully I'll be able to do that and take it to the next 3 levels. All right, let's close us out here with a little bit of a dose of inspiration. Proverbs 13:12 says, "Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a dream fulfilled is a tree of life." And that's in the New Living Translation. And that is, I think that's what really speaks to me about what I just talked about with summer, because it says hope deferred makes the heart sick. I am sick for getting back on the road. I'm sick for discovering new things and finding new people and experiencing new things as you get on the road and you click that shutter button as you're traveling about and you're trying to find new things. So it does make my heart sick a little bit, but a dream fulfilled is a tree of life. Oh yes. Cause see, we've got these other dreams going on, and, we're going to fulfill some of these. And that's what we're going to kind of talk about a little bit I'm pretty sure it'll be the next episode. So I'll catch you up on things if it's not the next episode, but yeah, I think it's going to be the next episode. All right. And then our quote that we're going to be looking at, William Durant, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit." One of my former graduates, or one of my graduates, whatever you want to call it, I don't know, he graduated 9 years ago or so. I'm starting to really feel old now. But anyway, he graduated in the neighborhood 10 years ago. He posted this on his Facebook, and I was just like, I am stealing that. I am putting that right here. But really, I'm stealing it from William Durant. And we are what we repeatedly do. I have definitely been thinking about this as well these last several months in saying, man, I just need to change up. I need to be able to do this. I need to be able to do that. And it just became obvious, of course, that, well, who else do I have to blame? I have to make the changes for myself. I have to live the life that I'm wishing I could live. I have to lay the groundwork to get to that point, to incorporate this new thing, to do that new item, to achieve this goal, whatever it is. So excellence, that's pretty broad. So life in general, whatever you want to call it, is not an act, but a habit. If we can make these things a habit, excellence will happen. If we can make these things a habit, then these improvements in our photography, these improvements in our lives, it will happen. And that's good stuff. So I leave you with those things, and I am looking forward to the next episode. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening in. Please do share this with a friend. I would love for you to just hit that button where you can copy the link, text it to someone, email it to someone, whatever it takes to share it with a friend. That would just really be the best Christmas gift you could give for me. And then also, of course, as we look forward to the new year, you might be helping out someone else as they are looking for something new to be inspired by, something new to have as a resource for improving their photography, for getting outdoors more and making more meaningful images. All right, we will see you in the new year, if not before. Until then, happy shooting.